call this meeting to order. Historic Preservation Commission. This is July 21st, 2015. Start with the roll call.
Commissioner Henry?
Here.
Commissioner Christmas?
Here.
Chairman Palacios?
Here.
Commissioner Figueroa?
Here.
And Commissioner Choma?
Here.
We have all five here tonight.
Next on the agenda, item 3 is the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you all rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So I'll have all the commissioners review the agenda. I would entertain a motion for approval of the agenda.
I make a motion for approval of the agenda.
Second that motion.
All those in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? There are none. Okay. Citizens Forum. This is for citizens wishing to speak on other items besides what is on our agenda in terms of public hearing.
Thank you.
If not, then we will proceed with public hearing. Case number HPC 2015-30. The Couse Foundation with the agent Robert Parker. So we're going to review it in terms of how it sits in the historic district.
Mr. Chairman, before we proceed any further, I must recuse myself from the commission tonight as I am intimately involved in this case. So I'm going to join the applicant at this time.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, I have to recuse myself because I'm an immediate neighbor of the Couse Foundation.
Thank you. You may go. So we still have a majority, I believe.
I'm here.
And I would like the staff to help present this project.
Sure. If the chairman allows me the pleasure, I'd first like to read the rules of public hearings. If you deem that appropriate?
Sure. Thank you.
Okay. In order to conduct an orderly and impartial public hearing, the chairman will preside and make all rulings for testimony given at tonight's meeting. The Historic Preservation Commission members have received and reviewed extensive materials regarding each application before the commission tonight, including the application and all related documentation, staff reports, and any letters in the file, either supporting or opposing the application. The following rules will apply. 1, all persons wishing to speak must first sign the speaker list and will be called in this order. Speakers will be allowed 3 minutes to address the commission. Speakers representing other persons will be allowed 5 minutes. The speaker must show written documentation that they represent someone else. 4, the chairman will allow cross-examination or rebuttal if the chairman feels this is pertinent to the findings presented. 5, the chairman will not tolerate shouting or unruly conduct and may direct the sergeant at arms to have any person removed from the meeting room for cause. 6, the chairman will then close the public hearing and allow the commission to deliberate the pending action to be taken based on findings presented by staff and by the public. The commission may approve, deny, approve with conditions, or postpone the decision to a subsequent meeting announced by the commission. 7, the chairman will then call for the question and voting will take place as to how to proceed on the application. 8, anyone aggrieved by the action of the zoning commission may file an appeal pursuant to the appeal procedures set forth in the Town of Taos Land Use Development Code. The appeal must be filed within 10 working days of the decision. 9, all cases will be heard on their own merits and do not create a precedent for other applicants.
Thank you.
Okay. Introducing this application before you is a proposal to put an approximately 3,600 square foot archive facility on the Couse property. Earlier this evening, the application received conditional approval for a special use permit to establish on the site, subject to, among other things, approval by this board of a certificate of appropriateness for the proposed facility. With that in mind, I would recommend bringing the applicant forward to explain the project in more detail.
Thank you. Applicant, please step forward, state your name, and be sworn in.
I swear to tell the truth.
Again, yes. Thank you. My name is Bob Parker. I'm the owner's representative and part of the design team, and I'll introduce the other members. Carl Jones is president of the Couse Foundation. Virginia Couse-Levitt is a member of the board of the foundation and the great-granddaughter of Irving Couse. And David Henry, who's over there by the computer, is part of the design team. I'd like to ask a question of the commission, if I might. I'm very willing to go back through the presentation with the PowerPoint that I did initially for the Planning and Zoning Commission. Were you all here to see that, or would you prefer that I go back through it?
I wasn't here.
Okay.
I was also not here, and just for additional clarity, the Historical Preservation Commission deals with other elements than the Planning and Zoning Commission. So I don't know if that will affect your presentation, but I just wanted to put that awareness out.
I think it's a good overview of the project. So
Yeah. Well, I'll repeat it, but I'll try and concentrate primarily on the architecture of it, if we could. So next, if we can turn the lights down, please. Maybe it is, yeah. That's fine. Maybe the next slide, please. And can the commission see this on their monitors?
Yes.
Okay.
You want to come over here?
The proposed project is an archive facility for the Couse Foundation, and this is the original 6 members of the Taos Society of the Artists. This is Irving Couse, whose home and studio and his son's facilities are on this site and are still maintained as a museum there. Next slide, please. And I'm sure you've all seen that previous slide many times because it's the 100th anniversary. The subject site of the Couse property is this entire outlined site here of 1.4 acres. And the site for the proposed archive building is located right here. These are vehicles that you see stored here. The site has never been developed in prior times to anyone's best of knowledge. Next, please. This is the subject site here. We're looking at the rental tenant spaces here at Sandoval Studios here. The Couse Studios here. The Couse House is here. And the oldest structure on the site, the Luna Chapel, is here. The Henry Joseph Sharp, his second studio is here. His first one was in the studio, the Luna Chapel here, and that's currently used for revolving exhibitions.
Mr. Parker, we have the thing on the screen, but we don't have your little pointer.
Oh.
So I don't know what you're pointing to. Is it proper for us to be down there to watch his presentation? I would like to. You guys may join me or not.
Okay.
But
I'll follow you. I'll let you get out first. Okay.
This little red dot is what I used to play with our cat with. But this is the Couse Sharp property here of 1.4 acres, bordered by Kesnell Street, Kit Carson Street here. This is the Mission Gallery, which is not part of the site. There's a narrow access laneway here that comes into the center of the site. This is the second Sharp studio here. The first Sharp studio was up here, and that's in the old Luna Chapel, which is the oldest building on site. The Couse house is here, studio here. Kibbe Couse's machine shop. He was an inventor and a scientist who's located here. His laboratory was here. These are rental spaces here. This is Ed Sandoval's studio here, and these rental spaces are very small, 250 square foot rental spaces. The subject site is here, and it is vacant and always has been. Next, please. This is a view from Kesnell Street, 1926. You see the Sharp studio here, which was built in 1915. This structure is no longer here. It was replaced in the early 80s by the tenant spaces that the grandson of Irving Couse built there. The house and studio are up here, and this Latia fence runs along Kesnell. Our subject site is right here. Next, please. This is the site plan, and there'll be an enlargement of it. These are the rental studio spaces at Sandoval's space, the Couse studio, and Kibbe Couse's machine shop, the house here, the Luna Chapel there, and the Sharp studio there. Next, please. This is an enlargement of the site plan. This is the proposed archive building here, located here, with its mandatory by code 4 parking spaces. One is an ADA van accessible. Access to the parking is off of Kesnell Street and into this parking area here. There's parking here for the other tenants along here and at Sandoval's here. This shows the line of zone of construction here, this dotted line. The setback off the western property, which has been an issue during the development of this project, is 50 feet, and the excavation distance will be limited to 5 feet along this corner here, which is at the closest point to the western property. Next, please.
Could you just go back one? Could you indicate where the 50 feet is measured from?
That's measured from here to here. So it's right there. So
the nearest corner?
The nearest corner is 50 feet. So anywhere down through here, you're probably closer to 60 feet. Next, please. This is the floor plan of the proposed building. It is developed in the Pueblo Spanish Revival style, and I'll go into that in more detail. There's a small entry portal here. This is Kesnell Street down here. Small entry portal, reception area, administrative office, archivist office, an outside portal here, and research study room here. This is all archival storage here, here, and here, all the way down through here. And there's archival storage for the 10,000 negatives that are of Irving Couse's that are held by the family currently and will be coming to the foundation. Shipping and receiving here, and this is the mechanical room, and this is the proposed exterior mechanical yard here, which I'll discuss further on. These are the 4 parking spaces here, one of which is van ADA accessible. Next, please. This is the front facade. The color, and I should state, of the buildings is the El Rey Adobe stucco color, which is virtually the same as the rest of the buildings on the Couse property. Computers don't do very well with trying to match color unless you spend a fortune calibrating monitors and playing back and forth. So the color, it's too red here, it's way too brown there, but it is very close to the Adobe El Rey stucco color. color, and we will custom mix the adobe color to match the rest of the buildings. This is the front facade here that faces Kesnel Street. This is the entry portal here, the administrative office, the archival office, the portal here, and recessed in behind it is the research room. And here you're seeing the first part of the archival storage there. This is the easterly facing facade with the entrance portal here, the small reception area, shipping and receiving, and I should state that's recessed into the facade. And this is the door to the mechanical room, and this is the outside exterior mechanical yard where the HVAC equipment and the emergency generator will be stored. And this is all a concrete. It's like a concrete vault. It has a concrete roof with a donut hole in the top. It's all sound insulated, and it will be heavily and densely vegetated on the outside to absolutely minimize the noise from that equipment. Next slide. This is the westerly facing facade here. This is Kesnel Street down here. The height of the building maximum is 15 feet, and it's 6 feet out of grade back at that northwest corner adjacent to the western property over here. This is the northern facade here. Again, you're seeing it starting at 6 feet, and then it opens up to about 8 feet here at this point. And then you're seeing the buried mechanical yard here. So it's virtually all under grade.
Bob, if you could you go back to the site plan and show where the site is draining to?
Yes, I'd be happy to. There's two drainage areas. The back of the building here and along the side will be bermed, and one drainage area, and it's a little hard to see here. There's a drainage line that comes down here to a retention pond, and then the other drainage area comes out around here to another retention pond.
Thank you.
And all stormwater runoff, of course, is contained on site, so it's a zero-based runoff program. Next slide, please. Next. And then the next. And this shows the view shed from the neighbor's house to the westerly here, that the building is set down, and their view shed out to the Sangre de Cristo Mountains, and Pickery's Peak is preserved into the pasture. And next, please. And most of you already know Virginia Couse Levitt here and her husband, Ernest Levitt, and they are the ones that basically started this whole project 25 years ago. So that's the extent on the slides. And if we could have the lights back, please. So what I'd like to do is just speak a little bit about the architecture of the building as relates to the Certificate of Appropriateness. The proposed access for the parking is an existing driveway that's in front of the Ed Sandoval studio. So that will only require modifications to make that a proper access, and to both the parking for the archives and also to the studio buildings there. All of the utilities are contained within the right-of-way on Kesnel Street, and there are no concerns in that regard. And your application shows a letter from Kit Carson Electric that they can service the building with the existing transformer that's located out in front there. The massing and the scale, based on the design guidelines for the historic overlay zone, is that the building is proposed to be in harmony and compatible with the dominant scale and architecture of the surrounding neighborhood. Part of the guidelines state that the building is to exhibit a massive structural quality in support of those guidelines. As I mentioned earlier, the building is in the Pueblo. I'm getting tired. The building is in the Pueblo Spanish Revival style, with numerous points of articulation. And it's set into the slope with a 6-foot exposure above grade at that northwest corner. And it's the cut that is the excavation cut that will be used to berm the back northerly side and the westerly side of the building, again to minimize its height above grade. The building has been purposely designed with a low profile to minimize intrusion into view planes, both from the westerly neighbor and also from on site back up toward the Couse property. And all exterior corners per the guidelines are softened with a 4 to 5 inch rounded bullnose. The exterior walls are sloped to soften the profile and blend with existing structures. All windows and doors are a minimum of 3 feet from any corner. The fenestration and glazing is consistent with the type found in the neighborhood and on the Couse property, with divided lights for windows and doors. And I should state that the mutton bars will be true mutton bars for the windows, and all the doors will be wood, and even the shipping and receiving door will be wood clad. The south facade is substantially less than is maximally allowable based on the design guidelines, which is 40% allowable. It's actually 22% of the building. The architecture detail is functional. There's no exposed vigas, viga ends or weaving vigas. There's no solar equipment associated with the facility. There's no exposed mechanical equipment on the roof other than plumbing vents that would come through the roof for the bathroom. The surface materials and texture, the building will be stuccoed with cement stucco, as I mentioned, and El Rey stucco color custom mixed to match the existing buildings. The doors are a Valspar color that is the turquoise of the existing Couse property buildings, and again that will be computerized custom mixing of the color so that it matches the existing. And exposed beams again will be very, very close to the existing exposed beams and woodwork on the rest of the Couse property. All landscaping is either indigenous or with native plant materials in respect of the existing site and neighborhood. The mechanical yard is essentially an insulated concrete vault, most of which is well below grade and will be heavily landscaped on its westerly and northerly sides. We don't want to create any more visibility of it than is at all possible. And I guess the last thing I would say is that the proposed archive building and its location on the site has been reviewed with an on-site visit by the state architect for the State Historic Preservation Office, and there's a letter of support of her endorsement in the application. And I'm not sure what the procedure is, but I'm certainly willing to answer questions.
Well, yeah. Do we have any questions?
Not at the moment.
Not at the moment. There'll be some discussion, but we may ask you some questions afterwards. But I'd like to hear the rest of the presentation and the public speak also.
Okay.
Thank you. So now I'm going to entertain people in the public that wish to speak. There's a roster here in terms of the order, but I don't know that everybody that signed this is necessarily going to speak. This is just like who all is here. So I will kind of look in general. If I see a couple of different hands and I can identify, I'll give them the right to speak. So, is there anybody else from the presentation that wishes to speak at this time? Anybody in the public that would like to speak? Nobody? Okay. Come on up, please.
Swear to tell the truth?
Ken Manning, yes.
What's your name?
Ken Manning.
Okay.
Great building design. My only comment had been on the western wall. I would have hoped to have seen, maybe a couple of windows, something to break up, a 60-foot solid, and, maybe a broken spoke, wheel mural or something, something to break up that expanse so where you're coming down Quesnel, you don't just see a blank wall. That really was, from a design perspective. Otherwise, I think they've done a great job.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Yes, sir.
I could respond to that comment if you like on behalf of the foundation.
Get up and introduce yourself.
I'm Carl Jones, president of the foundation, and yes, I do. Yes, I do. Our intention is for this to be as low profile as possible. The two main facades that will be visible is as you approach it down Quesnel on the west side, and then the front elevation actually facing Quesnel. So this is the front elevation. Our instructions, we have not yet hired a landscape architect. We will do that before a shovel ever goes in the ground. But we will landscape as much as possible so that it doesn't look outrageous, to hide as much of that wall as possible. It's in our own interest to make the site as attractive as we can. It's our intention to use indigenous materials and trees. We're going to be careful that whatever is selected does not grow to such a height that it grows into the sight line that we're preserving by keeping the profile of the building low. So the two sides that will be heavily landscaped will be the north side and the west side, if that's helpful.
Okay. Don't go away.
Okay.
Any questions for him?
Not at the moment.
Have you hired a builder yet? A general contractor?
No, we have not. And I'll tell you why we have not, because we view this as a process. We want to be sure that we've done everything we need to do and that we have the approvals we need. Then we will go out and hire, or rather we'll go out and acquire construction bids from 2 or 3 qualified builders, just bids, so that we know what the amount is we're dealing with here. And then we will go out and try to raise the money. So, it's a while before a shovel goes in the ground. We don't have a building contractor because that's really down the road.
Okay.
My hope is, as a resident of this county, that everything we can source, we will source locally. If we can find a qualified builder locally, we'll use a qualified builder locally. But we're a long ways from that. I will also say that before we begin, we'll do all appropriate and necessary soil testing on the site to be very comfortable that the integrity of the site will be protected, because after all, that site is going to be wrapping around our building. So we want to be very careful of that and be respectful of our neighbors to the west, that we don't do anything that could in any way affect their home in the way it's sited.
Okay. You may step down for now, please. Anybody else? Gee, we didn't get to hear all the comments earlier, but so then I will open it for discussion with the commissioners. If they have any questions, either for the representative or anyone else. Do you have any questions?
I don't really have questions. I observed a good deal of this. I went through the packet. I concur with some of the perspective that was given by the state, that this building is essentially valuable to the historic property, and it is also a low-key building. It has a low profile. I think these are, and does not do anything in size and scale to change the essential character of this street. These are all positives that I've seen. Certainly, the design standards are in keeping with the historical district. And so at this moment, these are my observations.
Okay, thank you. Yourself, Paul?
Mr. Parker, I have a couple of questions just for you and the design team. I've heard previously the description of the building as a warehouse, and I've heard continued respectfulness of the neighbors to the west. So I'm just want to follow up Mr. Mann's question a bit more. Was there discussion among the design team on how to lessen the impact from the west view, looking at just a facade of Bell Ray colored stucco?
Almost daily. There's been discussion.
Would you share any of that with us?
Well, yes, I can. First of all, the concept was to set it into the hill so that the full 15 feet diminishes to 5 feet on the that northwest corner. And secondly, it will be heavily landscaped, and I would use the concept of blend and blur so that both the west side and the north side blend and blur into the existing landscape. We would not want to go in and just plant solid shrubbery to disguise the wall, but blend and blur means that you cluster landscaping so that there's fragments of the wall that are still visible. The principal reason for no fenestration on those two sides is security.
Right.
Because we only want very minimal security lighting, and those would be down lights in the two portals at night. And we certainly don't want to risk the vulnerability of break-in where the site is not visible from the street. I mean, it's not normal.
No discussion of faux windows or wood covering or anything to suggest fenestration in windows?
I suppose that's possible, yes.
Just asking.
But I think the word warehousing is my nemesis tonight. Mm-hmm. No question.
Any more?
Sure, I have more. On the east elevation, which is the entry portal, the mechanical room looks very different in terms of the door than the shipping and receiving doors. The shipping and receiving door is standard roll-up, and therefore not an option to make it similar to the other one.
It could certainly be made similar, but the roll-up door provides better access, and it is wood-clad.
It is wood-clad.
It is wood-clad.
Just horizontal rather than vertical.
Well,
what are you going to do?
It's a panelized door, but it would be vertical boards.
Okay. It's not showing on this.
It shows here on mine, but.
It looks like a roll-up door there.
Yeah.
Receiving door.
Yeah. Yes, I do see it. Sorry, it's the light here, but yes, that would be vertical panels of wood. Yeah.
Huh? Is it a roll-up door?
It's
a sectional door.
A sectional door.
And it goes on a track overhead.
So the lines are horizontal.
Correct.
The division between the panels are horizontal, but it would be clad with vertical boards.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It has a roof.
I know these are preliminary drawings, but there's one, and I don't see it right now, with the portal, with the entranceway to the building. Entrance.
This one?
Is the fencing or the handrail that's in front of that entrance going to be so stark and unresponsive to the tradition of ironwork in this northern New Mexico?
On what should be in your application, there's no handrail. You may have a very early conceptual sketch that showed a handrail, and that's no longer relevant.
Okay,
That's out of date.
no handrail.
No, you can tear that out of your binder.
I guess that brings up handicapped access for researchers who are not
Yes,
able
and
to walk
there's an ADA van accessible parking space,
Right.
and that's right adjacent to the entranceway there. So it's all level access there.
Well, I have one question.
Mm-hmm.
Is this building...
Excuse me, are you done?
I'll take a break.
Okay. Only because I just thought of it. Is this building, the square footage of this building, estimated to be what is needed for the archives? In other words, can you see this building having a need to grow in size in the future?
Yeah. Thank you. That's a very good question. The answer is no. We spent a lot of time on the programming phase to arrive at the size of the building such that it would adequately house all of the proposed archives that would ever come to it. There's two reasons for that. One is initial cost, and number two, because of the specialized environmental controls, it's very expensive to expand, and especially on this site. So, yeah, we've tried to say this is it.
So you see this building as being adequate for
Yes, more than
the needs?
Yes, absolutely.
Great, thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to step in here if I may.
Yes, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman.
I've been studying the plans and trying to get a handle on what's going on here. So I see the original site plan has two huge trees. What type of trees are those?
Well, one is a volunteer elm that's all over town, and the other is
Mulberry.
no, it's
Very old Russian olive.
no,
Very unhealthy tree.
yeah, it's Ernie. Could you? I know that you've called it a trash tree. Swamp maple. Yeah, they're neither.
That isn't clarified on here. I just see two. I don't know, because historic preservation is more than just allowing buildings to be put anywhere. I feel we need to respect the neighborhood. So you have some very charming architecture going on that hillside, including the beginning Couse building. The scale and the variety and so forth is very residential. Your building, which I feel, I don't know how it ended up there, but it's so close to Quesnel Road. This whole hillside is kind of landscape. You're presenting a building right on the road. So if you're walking by there, that's going to impact the neighborhood. Whether it's good or bad, I'm just saying I sense that it's very forward on the site plan. I don't want to design your building at all, but it doesn't look like the rest of it doesn't have the character of the rest of the buildings on that property. We start with now there's a monumental wall right after the intersection of Quesnel. On the right, you have this beautiful, I think it's a Mabel Dodge house. And then after the wall, which is just George's, you have a nice kind of, I would say, bungalow building, and then you have the church, and it's similar to what I guess is the Couse project, which are very soft buildings, and they're set back. And then you have even the Sandoval studio has a lot of character. And the Couse house is gorgeous. I mean, and it's very eclectic. I don't know what style it would be, but its massing is unique. I'm not convinced that your building looks like the rest of the neighborhood. I would like to be convinced somehow. It just seems very institutional or something in that neighborhood. So I think it's an important building in an important location. And I don't know that the public can read the plans. I mean, it sounds to me it's been approved that it's going to go on that site. But I don't know if the public knows what it looks like in terms of scale. You say it's only 5 feet in the corner, but it's 15 feet in the front, and it's 10 feet from the property line.
No, it's 15 feet from the Kesnell property line.
Okay, from the front, from Kesnell?
Yes.
Okay, that's still 15 feet. I mean, it's a 45-degree.
But the street itself that's the property line. The street itself is south of that, so it's probably effectively 20 to 23 feet from the travel lane surface.
So that's another thing that I noticed. I was curious about pedestrian courtesy to pedestrians. Is there any, whether it be gravel or whatever, sidewalk in that area?
There's no sidewalks presently, and the intention has been not to put any sidewalks in. There's no sidewalks except.
Okay, well, but I mean, as you walk along that street,
people walk on the travel surface.
But there's also retaining walls set back on some of the other properties.
Yes, but to the best of my knowledge, any pedestrian traffic walks on the road surface. There are no sidewalks.
Yes, sir, but this is 2015. There is more and more traffic. In fact, people haul pretty well around that little street, the old Ojitos. So my charge is what you're doing to for the pedestrian or the landscape of the neighborhood, the curb appeal. In other words, you go along and you have these beautiful, different kind of buildings, and then you put your building right next to us, and you want us to walk in the street, and you might be doing things. I'm just saying, what are you giving back to the public that goes across that?
Well,
area?
I mean, it's perfectly possible to put a walking laneway along the edge of the street.
Uh-huh.
It was chosen not to, certainly at this stage with these schematic drawings, because there's no history of one.
No. Well, okay. So, myself, I don't know how we're going to vote or anything, but I would like, and that's why I was asking if you all had a builder or what, but I would like to see some poles put up on the corner of your proposed development so that the neighbors get a sense of what it is instead of these flat diagrams, so that the public gets a sense of what it is on each corner and tie a string to them so we can sense the reality of the mass. If this was not a significant location or significant building, I probably wouldn't be asking this, but I really feel that it's important for us, if we condone this project, that we know what we're getting. And I'm not convinced from the plans and so forth that it just seems to me, why isn't it pushed further into the hill?
We can push it further into the hill, and we've explored that, but that reduces the distance from the western property the farther we push it up the hill.
Oh, but you, please, Mr. Parker, you said you had a 5-foot distance of
construction zone, right?
Yes, but then you have a construction zone that's further than 5 feet to the north. Therefore, your effective distance.
If the building is to be parallel with the street frontage, okay. If it's to be parallel with Kesnel, the farther back you push the building into the slope, if you follow me.
Yeah.
Then you minimize you start to reduce the distance of offset from the western property line. It's now currently 50 feet.
Yes.
If you push it back, it's going to become 45 feet or whatever.
Well, right, but that's an obtuse line, and if I put it back 10 feet, it only gets 3 feet or 5 feet closer. It doesn't get 10 feet closer to that property line.
We have.
No, I'm curious. Yeah. It's not like I'm just wondering.
We've been trying to balance two things here. One, the concern of the immediate neighbor to the west,
okay.
And I think we've accommodated that. And the other is to respect the streetscape, and so that's why the building is shown where it is. If we're to vary that, per your suggestion, yes, we do decrease that offset at that northwest corner from the western.
But it's not a 1-to-1 ratio.
No, it isn't a 1-to-1 ratio. Yeah.
So, but you just said that you were dealing with the front property line versus the neighbors. You're respecting that distance, but I'm just saying. I feel from looking at it, I'm not convinced that it's not too close to the street, because I think you kind of have just crowded the street. You've changed.
Okay.
You're changing the profile of the street, which everybody may want, but I'm not convinced that they know what they're going to get, and I hate for it to go up, and then people say, "Wow, is it really this tall and this close?" That's my concern, and yes, you have answers, but I'm just looking at I was not part of how you got here.
Right.
So I'm trying to, from my experience reading plans, you're awfully close to the road, and you're awfully tall to the road, and your building is very austere.
Your comments are accepted and will be considered.
Right.
That's all I can say at this point.
Well, good. But what I'm saying is that I want to have that consideration as part of the process of us approving your building. In other words, when I'm asking to see how tall it's going to be, where it's going to sit on the site, those are part of the process. This is a 2-step process of us approving your building. We're trying to make it so that it can be fast-tracked, but in terms of the code now, it's a 2-meeting process. And one is to ask for recommendations, and the other one is to be assured that those recommendations happen. And we have problems here in this town where we approve things, and then later they're red tagged because they weren't built according to what we approved. And I'm not saying you're not going to build it according to what was approved.
So if I could, what I'm hearing is that you're having trouble, or maybe you're not having trouble, but you would like to see what the massing would look like.
Yeah.
Maybe through a site visit or something along those lines?
No, from poles put in the ground Temporary? Hey, come on. It's not a big deal. You put a post in and you put a couple, it's like batter boards. You put up batter boards and you show where the building is going to be on each corner, and you can and if you brace it, you run a string across and you outline that mass. So between now and our final approval, we have a chance to visit the site and see what you're doing, because I'm not convinced that. Yeah, excuse me. Go ahead.
You want to speak?
Basically, what you're asking for are elevation stakes, right?
Yes.
And then, if I'm allowed to speak.
Well, come on up, if you would, please, and identify yourself. To the ones that haven't.
I have to ask you if you're going to tell the truth or not.
Thank you, Robert.
State your name, please.
I'm Julie Scanzi. I'm with the Town of Taos.
Do you swear to tell the truth?
Sure, why not?
Okay.
I love swearing. So one of the other questions I had, Mr. Commissioner, was when you were talking about street approach and pushing it back, if they tweaked it, if you look at the buildings on that plan, nothing is directly facing the street except this one. So if it was catty-cornered, pushed back, does that do anything?
It may.
That's my only
Well, thank you. No, well, that's what I'm talking about. Well,
If I may?
Sure.
Please.
Just your name is
I'm
good.
David
at this
Henry.
You swear to tell the truth?
I do.
Okay, go for it.
I'm with Henry Architects. I'm a licensed architect in the state of New Mexico. I really appreciate all of the dialogue here. And just to inform the audience and the commission a little further, there's been, I think Mr. Parker alluded to this earlier, there's been almost daily changes to our site plan and the massing of this building since the conception of the project. And there's been a lot of factors that have been shaping this building. And I think that makes good architecture, and I truly appreciate everybody's comments. These are schematic drawings. They're not shovel-ready. I think Mr. Jones, the president of the foundation, stated pretty clearly that at the earliest, this building will be built in a 1.5-year time frame, at the earliest. There's a lot more development that needs to happen. One of the items that is fairly subtle on the site plan is there's some existing stone walls. There's some debate as to whether they are historic or not. We don't believe they are. We love them, though. These are certainly the stone wall that rises up Quesnel as you go to the east. We're not impacting that wall. It remains as is. In order to get our building pushed as far east as possible to mitigate the concerns of the neighbor to the west, we will be slightly impacting the existing stone wall that is west of the larger stone wall to the east. And that sounds like a horrible thing. In my opinion, it's a great opportunity. Mm-hmm. We plan on, and we've written some specifications on how to do this. What we plan on doing is disassembling the western low stone wall. It's only about 3 feet high. Portions of it are dry stack, field stone. Other portions are mortared in place. We're going to disassemble that wall and reincorporate portions of that wall as a trash enclosure, which is somewhat shown on the site plan there. It's in the center of the drive. I think there's also a really great opportunity to tie our new building with the use of existing historic stone, if you will, incorporating that into the base of our building, which will tie it to the other buildings. I also think that could serve to ground the building to the street a little more, which may address some of your concerns, Commissioner Palacios. What is the experience as you walk along Quesnel? What do you see after our building is built? It's not clearly shown in our drawings, but we do. It is shown in the site plan, the extent of the wall that's impacted. It's shown as a dotted line in your packet, and I do think it addresses some of the articulation and shade and shadow and what makes our building appropriate for this site. And it certainly needs to be developed more, and we have every intention of doing that. I also really take to heart the comments regarding how squat and flat, and I don't think our building looks in any way institutional. I think it looks like a residence that belongs on Quesnel. And Quesnel, if you've been in the neighborhood, is kind of woven between residential and commercial. And we're trying to address that. We're trying to be sympathetic to both the commerce that happens in the neighborhood and the single-family residences that occur as you go to the west.
Okay, so since you're taking on this part, then let me say, at one point, Mike Reynolds wanted to put an earthship in the historic part of town. And it wasn't to disparage Mike Reynolds, but it wasn't appropriate to that neighborhood. I'm just using that as an example. This building, it looks okay. It looks fine as a presentation of building. I'm looking at the impact of this particular style, and I very much take to heart that you're saying that you're planning to reduce the scale by adding wainscots of rock and so forth, and those are the things that I'm interested in. Like, why are all the portales parapets? Why aren't they shed roofs? Why aren't they something softer? Then, if you want to talk specific about your building, that helps. That becomes more in keeping with the neighborhood, where the Couse building has a lot of sheds.
It does.
And then the building is showing back. I didn't know if that was the courthouse or what, but I mean, it has a softness to it. In your sketch,
you're referring to the
Couse building, isn't that it? The Sharp building, yes.
Up higher on the hill.
Yeah.
I don't believe it has any shed roofs, in my opinion.
That's it, right. That's the only one.
It's very much it's almost a mission style building. Many of both the Couse house and the Sharp studio have very soft, rounded bell nichos that aren't necessarily Spanish Revival style. I think they're more mission style. It's a very eclectic property. You said that yourself.
Right. So, but
our building is not yet eclectic, and maybe that's a bad thing.
No, no. But see, I want you to present it to me when it is eclectic, or when it is soft, and where it is to scale. I mean, I want to be a part of that process, because that's our charge.
We welcome that.
To say that it's still evolving, and in 2 years we'll start building. Are you planning to come back before us with your final
We
property?
are not.
Oh, right.
We're planning on submitting final documents to the building officials for a building permit, although we do have a follow-up hearing in a month, and we'd be happy to present supplemental design ideas. I think the core of the project has been presented. I absolutely do not think the floor plan or the site plan will change unless we are told to do so.
Okay.
I think the look of the building certainly needs to be massaged, and that's a normal process with any architectural project. And we look forward to working with the Town of Taos and the public.
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment.
We take your comments to heart.
Yes.
Yeah, I would like to just make an overall comment on what we've been discussing so far. I think that we're all the best depiction that we have of more of a three-dimensional drawing and not as flat is this one right now. There are a few things that were discussed this evening. The first thing is that landscaping is a very important part of this project, and that is something that I would like to see followed up on all the way through, because that has an effect of softening the street, softening the landscape of the street in general, and also is a wonderful buffer for neighbors on either side and across the road. It's amazing what that can do. And I would say that this drawing does indicate that intent. What I would like to see is that intent followed through.
Sure.
The other thing that struck me when
To address that point, a landscaping plan will be required at the time of building permit.
I'm sorry?
A landscaping plan will be required with the building permit.
Of course.
There
and
is a
since we're
landscape
talking about this
plan
now, I
in your
just
packet.
thought let's put that down on the to-do list. The other thing that struck me, just me personally, looking at this packet, and it was very well done and it's very detailed up until this point, is this building, as it's shown here, does not pretend to be an extension of the existing Couse and Sharp conjunction properties. It doesn't pretend to do that. It appears to be a contemporary building that has some of the Southwest vernacular that we have indicated for the historical district, but it does not pretend to be or have the architectural vernacular of the existing historical buildings on Kesnell.
Yes.
And that is something that I would really love to have the input of the Taos public on, because it's a thought, it's an ideology. Do we, when we build newer buildings in the historical overlay, do we feel that we have to mimic the older buildings? Because that is what's called the Disneyland syndrome. And we need to be careful of that. Or so that we're not sitting there approximating buildings built in 2015 and 2020 to look like the older buildings. Why do we need to do that? Can we find a way that's a synchronicity between buildings that are built in their time, in their space and time, in a good way, and have them integrated within certain guidelines into the historic district? And that's something I think that I personally would really welcome the input of the public on this, because I think people are divided when it comes to that. There are differing opinions on that. You know, the Historical Preservation Commission has guidelines as far as materials, as far as architectural design standards and architectural vernacular to a certain degree. But we do not have anything that indicates that we are to go ahead in this time period and continue to build buildings that are replications of buildings that are 100 years old and more. And that's something that we really, really, I think, is at the core of this type of discussion.
Mm-hmm.
So whoever has not spoken up this evening about such a thing, and if you have an idea about it, I sure would love to hear it. Because in my heart of hearts, I think that it is important in our growth and for the future, and change is inevitable. The only thing we can do is have intelligent change. it's important that we find some sort of balance between what we have as part of our historical buildings and where do we go with newer buildings built in the historical overlay. Can we find that balance and can we find that synchronicity so that we are not building buildings that are replicas of the past? They stand confidently on their own as being built in the year that they were built, with reference and respect to the architectural vernacular that is established in the historical district.
All excellent points, Commissioner Choma. Specific to this project, our team, I hope I can speak for our team. I'll let them conclude this discussion, but as the architect, I'm open to all suggestions. That's why we're here tonight. We've been very transparent with this project, and we've worked very closely with the Town of Taos staff. I believe we've had, I know we've had 2, we may have had 3, what I consider design review committee meetings. 1 is required. We've had 3. We had an initial meeting prior to Lewis being hired as the planning director. That meeting was with Mr. Bellis, who was acting as the interim planning director. We then scheduled a formal DRC meeting, which we held, and we were happy to do that. When Mr. Feinberg was hired, we were requested to attend and present again at an additional DRC meeting. We complied with that. Happy to do it. We like our project. We like showing it to people. We like showing it to the public. It is a very important building for the downtown historic core of Taos, and we realize that. I think we've taken efforts to show that it's an important building. We do not want to compete with the wonderful, eclectic campus that is up the hill. I don't think we'll ever recreate the Sharp Studio. I don't think we have any intention of recreating the crazy ensemble of the Couse Studio and Home. That complex was created over a time frame of 50 to 80 years. We don't have that luxury. I can tell you this, that we have every intention of making this structure a very contextual, fitting building for the neighborhood. And I think we've tried to do that schematically. Does it need more refinement? Absolutely. We are taking note of your comments, and we look forward to further comments.
Well, and I would like feedback on the comments. I'm not asking you to make a Disneyland building there. I'm talking about streetscape. I'm talking about scale. I'm talking about materials. I'm talking about massing. And I'm not trying to design your building. I'm just saying that as it's presented, I think it needs a little more TLC that I think we would like to be a part of. But I can leave that to, I have not been to your 6 other meetings. I have not been to your other presentations. I have not been privy to your dialogues with your neighbor. Mm-hmm. This is what I've been studying what's in this packet. And I'm not telling you to not have a service entry. I'm not telling you to not have the building there. It's been approved that it can be there. I'm just concerned about, hey man, modern buildings, come on. I mean, I'm just saying the vernacular that you've chosen, I feel is a little stark, and I think that the scale is important, and that's why when I put a suggestion out there, like, can you demonstrate to us how it's going to look with the cheapest, fastest. I mean, if you've gone to 6 meetings and I'm just asking you to put corner post markers so that we can see what it looks like, I'm not telling you don't build it. I'm not telling you, but I really do like, and I want to be a part of, if you're going to save the rock walls, if you're going to incorporate rock in, that's the vernacular of what you're doing, and I don't see much vernacular.
Yes, sir. I understand.
And so it's an architectural issue, and I don't want to berate it. I'm not. Do you feel I'm telling you how to build it?
No, sir, I don't. I appreciate your comments.
Okay.
Prior to the issue of staking the building being brought up, our team has every intention of doing that. We have the materials to do that. We have the manpower and the staffing to go out and stake the corners. We have every intention of doing that.
And run a string along the top
Yes,
so that we can just see
Our
it?
intent was to stake the north parapet. I think it's going to be difficult.
Can I just?
Absolutely.
We're prepared to stake the building.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I would encourage you guys to what you present to us be pretty close to what you're going to build, so that I don't go out there and go, wow, is that what we approved?
Yeah.
I mean, our commission. I don't know about all the the red tape. I have the confidence that you guys can do it. I'm not asking you of something you can't do. I don't think. Okay.
If this was to be fully approved tonight, and this was the final hearing, you would see built what you see here. We're not going to go for approval, receive approval, and then start modifying it. That is not the intention.
Correct. So I'm saying that what I see here needs some of this stuff.
And we're saying we're willing to comply with it.
Right. So, okay, good. So,
Commissioner Palacios, I think what you're not seeing and what I'd like to address is some of the finer detailing and some of the subtle elements that may make this building appeal to you more. How are the canales detailed? How are the corbels detailed? What are the carvings on the door? You're not seeing those elements.
Yeah, I'd like to see them.
And we can provide them. This is a schematic package to get us through zoning. The details of the doors will certainly be revealed. I think there's a lot of opportunity for contemporary decorative metal. There's a metal gate accessing the exterior mechanical yard. It's a great opportunity to introduce color, design of a gate. Mr. Parker alluded to the roof of the exterior mechanical yard. Another design opportunity. We haven't shown it to you yet. We have some ideas on that. We will bring supplemental drawings to the next hearing.
Right, but I want to be clear though that my concern is not really the vault that you're putting back there for the mechanical. My concern is as you drive by this place or you walk by this place, is it inviting? Does it feel, even as modern as it can be, does it feel part of the neighborhood? And if this is it, then this is it. I'm just giving you my comments, and then when you start saying we still need to tweak it, I think the tweaking is what I'm concerned about. I'm not sure. I'm not sure that what I'm seeing here is the final drawing. Yes, sir.
May I just offer something?
Sure, please.
I'm going to step down.
All right, thank you.
I'm still sworn.
Thank you.
Just to remind you, I'm president of the foundation, the
Yes, sir.
applicant. I would like to invite all three of you, once it's staked, at your convenience, to come out.
Yes.
What's helpful, always helpful to me,
Yes, sir.
is to be on site and talk about something in context on site. So once it's staked at your convenience, when all three of you can be there, we'll be there with the design team. We can be on site, look at the 4 stakes, and look at all the surrounding buildings. Look at Kesnell Street, see what the setback is. To me, that's helpful. These are flat, two-dimensional drawings, but to talk about things in the vacuum is very difficult.
Yes.
But if we're on site so that we can see all the buildings while we're talking about this building, I think that would help your process, and I'm just offering that to you, that we're more than delighted to do that.
Right. Thank you. Yeah.
Well, and look, just to make it clear, we're not going to tweak things behind the scenes.
Okay.
We welcome input.
Okay.
It's a very sensitive site. It's very eclectic. And so, I don't want to put a round dome and paint it pink on that site. Obviously not. If there's anything we can do that's a cosmetic enhancement that will make this a nicer stroll down Kesnell or a more pleasant drive down Kesnell, we're totally open to that.
Okay. Well, that's really all I'm asking.
So, I mean, if that's an acceptable solution, once we get the stakes in the ground, we'll give you some heads-up warning about when that's going to happen. And then, if you don't mind, trying to coordinate your schedules with ours, we'll be happy to meet you on site.
Well, the way it's usually been done, and I'm surprised that we didn't go this time, either before the first or the second hearing for us, and I apologize if you've been through a plethora of stuff, but this is our only. I feel pretty responsible for our charge, and I don't feel negative about my. I feel my comments are constructive in terms of the reality of what you're building. Usually we have a site visit from staff because it has to be published and so forth on the day of your next hearing.
I'm sorry.
On the day of your next hearing. If it's in 2 weeks, then that day, like usually at around 2 o'clock, we would go and check it out. And hopefully by then, and that packet, we would be reassured, and it'll be a public hearing.
Yeah.
I have confidence that it's going to pass, but I want to share in the responsibility of what we're putting there because I also think it's important.
Yeah. I will tell you that we have received requested permission from at least one member of this commission to come out and walk the site with their booklet, and we gave them that permission, and they did come out and walk the site.
Of our commission?
Yeah,
or the other one?
No, I think it was this commission. They just wanted to come out and walk the site.
Yes, and we would do that prior to the next hearing.
Yeah. And
I would hope that that would be one of the items we would look at, and then I don't know. Maybe it's just hard. That's what I do every day is read plans. But I also have clients, and I also try to show them one way or another, whether it's a model or whether it's stakes in the ground or whether it's chalk on the site. I like to show them what's going on, and it may end up being exactly like what you're showing. I just feel it's within modern vernacular. I'm not changing that it could respect what's there, in my opinion, design-wise more, without compromising your plan, and I don't want to be designing it for you, but the things that I'm throwing out there are things that I would like it to blend in the neighborhood. And I feel this thing kind of just stands out in the neighborhood. And if you're going to stand out, man, it's like there's a lot of ways you could go. I mean, I respect that you're trying. I don't think you're not trying. I think it's okay. But my first hit on it, or the studying of it, I want to be part of whatever you're calling tweaking or whatever you're calling materials, whatever you're calling details. And I would like to walk the site with these commissioners, and I don't know if it's open to the public also, at that time?
Just a few points. One, would you be able to do this staking prior to the second hearing?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so we can arrange a site visit either the day of or prior to.
Prior to,
okay.
whenever.
But not after.
No.
No.
The second point is that, given that this is an architectural review, you will have the fine details present for the next presentation.
Yes.
Because what is approved, there can't be tweaking after the fact.
We don't want to tweak it after the fact.
What is approved is what is approved.
Yeah, we don't want to tweak
So
it
you would
after
have
the
to
fact.
come back for a modification if there were changes.
No.
Okay, so at the next meeting, all of the architectural detailing will be presented to you.
That'd be great.
Fair enough.
No. Oh, absolutely. I've heard what you're saying. I'm trying to be responsive to what you said, and
Thank
that's
you.
why I wanted to get up here and offer that site visit. To me, it's always helpful to be on the ground, on the dirt, and see the 360 degrees that you can't get in these drawings.
Right. When you put the shovel to it, it's like not only did you go to those other 6 meetings, but you had our blessing. I mean,
Can you temporarily build it for next meeting?
Temporarily.
or I don't know, like whatever it takes. I don't mind fast cardboard models either myself. I mean, that's old fashioned, but well, actually it's not. Now they have modern model makers that they start with a block and they route out the whole building and the contours and
3D printing.
for 3D modeling. Okay, well, I'll now close the public discussion, and if I may, if there's no one else, and I entertain a motion to approve this for final.
Actually, no motion is required.
No motion.
Okay,
No.
but it's not.
No.
No, this is the preliminary hearing.
Okay, then thank you very much.
Thank you.
Where's my agenda? Are there any matters from staff?
Just that the final hearing per the code is scheduled for August 12th.
Okay,
So that's when.
that's pretty quick, huh?
I'm sorry? That's when it'll be coming back. And
That's 2 weeks.
I have a conflict.
you have a conflict? I'm sorry. Okay.
I would not be able to attend an August 12th meeting date.
If that's the case, we would have to reschedule.
Further back. I think it's that's about as soon as you could go. But we can decide the date as we go along, as if who's available. Can we?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
We don't have to decide tonight.
We don't have to decide this evening.
We'll decide
Do the
a
email
date
thing.
that's convenient for all of us.
August
No.
12th is the next regular meeting. The code, as I understand it, a quorum is would be 3. In your case, it would be 3. So without poll in attendance, there wouldn't be a quorum.
That's right.
So there would be an inability to vote on this matter on the 12th.
Are we able to push this a week later? Will that schedule work for you, Paul? When are you available?
One of our team members is going to be out of the country.
Uh-huh.
Do we have to decide
I'm available Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday of that week.
No.
But not Wednesday.
We would need to determine when a date would be suitable to the commission and to the applicant.
The 12th is a Wednesday.
12th is a Wednesday.
We usually meet on the 13th. We usually meet on a Thursday.
Conservation Commission meeting.
Yeah,
Second Wednesday
the second Wednesday.
would be the
No, Thursday.
No.
That's why I had to. No, we meet on Thursdays.
No, Wednesday.
No, Wednesday.
Meet on Wednesdays.
Okay, then the one after. What about the 19th? Is that no good?
The 19th.
Out of the country himself.
How about the week earlier or a week later? Is that a
They
possibility?
just said they're out of the country. What about the 19th?
I
5
Week earlier, we might have notification problems.
first, I believe.
Well, they won't be ready. Are you guys going to be ready?
Not a week early.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
What's wrong with August 12th, besides Mr. Figueroa not being able to?
There would be no.
We won't have a quorum.
If Commissioners Henry and Christmas
You can't vote.
party. That's what I'm saying.
There needs to be at least 3 voting.
Can Dinah vote? Who's the backup bidder?
Well, that's something that needs to be discussed. On occasion, there's an appointed person in a conflict.
My
Right now, there
conflict
no
is
one
with
who is
5:30.
waiting to reserve.
I have a board meeting as president to attend that's scheduled at 5:30 on the 12th. So if you want to do it earlier in the day or later in that day, I would be available.
What's wrong with the 19th?
I'm out of the country.
Still?
Is 6:30 doable?
I'm planning the Fall Arts Festival. 6:30 will not do.
What
day?
time?
No, wait a
You
minute.
said you'd be available later, so what time would you be available?
I would say 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock?
Or earlier if you want to do it in the afternoon after lunch and have a site
about
visit
that?
and come in.
Hope we can fit everything in for the 12th. Can you be here? He said before 5?
1 o'clock?
How about a
1?
1 or 2 p.m.?
What about 3? I mean, don't we have to go to the site? Wait a minute. We're going to take the whole.
Yeah, could we vote on something?
Then we can go to the site at 10, tentatively, and then have after lunch a 2 o'clock meeting.
Does that work for you?
Does that
So
work
we
for
could do
you?
a site visit at 10, and then we could convene here after lunch?
At 2.
1?
At 2.
At 2?
Yeah.
That'll work. Does that work?
2 o'clock?
That works?
It's 2 o'clock, August 12th.
So it shall be done.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for being flexible.
Mr. Chairman, I move to adjourn.
The only other matter I have is that, and
It does say matters to me.
I mentioned this to the Planning Commission as well. I think it would behoove both of the commissions to have a combined meeting some point in August, possibly in September, for the purpose of discussing the establishment of procedures for hearings, to formalize a procedure that would be followed at each hearing and applied the same for each case going forward.
That would be great.
Is that something that you would
Before
be
the
interested in?
12th or after, you're saying?
We'll do it after.
Okay.
I think sometime maybe mid-August or maybe even early September. We can work out the date by
Sure,
email.
and we can be, in
And it
touch
would be-
digitally.
Exactly. And it would be for just that express purpose.
Right. Right.
Once we establish a set of procedures, we can pass it by resolution, and then we have something to go by.
Sounds good, Louis.
Okay?
Okay.
Great.
How about
That's
that?
the only thing I have.
Can we make that move now?
There's a motion on the floor to adjourn.
Yes, I second that motion.
All right. Let's get out of here.
Thank you all.
Thank you.